Hey guys, it's Deb. I'm going to show you another quick little sewing project for our ball jointed dolls. Today I'm going to show you pajama pants for a Pukifee size doll. This technique can also be used for larger dolls as well. On my blog, I will have a pattern for the Pukifee size, Minifee size, as well as the 17-inch Tonner male dolls. That's Matt, Rufus, and Penn. That pattern actually also fits the Evangeline Ghastly dolls. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how they fit male BJDs, but you know, I don't have any of those just yet, so once I get one, we'll adjust the pattern. So let's get started. It's pretty simple. You're going to need fabric, either cotton, knit, really you can do it in any kind of fabric. You'll need the pattern, which will be on my blog, and yes, I know I still owe you guys the pattern for the Christmas hat as well, and I will get that up too. So you'll need your fabric, you'll need your pattern, you need basic sewing supplies, needle and thread. You'll also need some stretch elastic. For the Pukifee size, you need a 3-inch piece. You need a 5.5-inch piece for the 16-inch dolls like Ello and Wild, Minifee, that sort of thing. And then you need a 6-inch piece for the male doll pattern. You need scissors. I also recommend a safety pin, and that's going to help us get the elastic through when it's time to put the elastic in. Alright, so when you cut your pieces out, the pattern says cut 2 on the fold. You can easily do that. You just fold your fabric right side together, trace it out, cut it out, and away you go. I like to actually trace both sides of the pattern, so I lay the pattern out, trace it, and then flip it over, so I've traced out the entire piece. You can either cut it out using regular straight scissors, or for this particular one, I actually used my pinking shears, and that'll help keep the fabric from rattling. So we're going to start with these this little blue pair, and with the needle and thread, you want to thread about a yard of thread into your needle, folded in half, so you have 2 lengths. So you're working with about an 18-inch piece. Okay, you're going to start on the wrong side of the fabric, and we're going to put our needle through about a quarter of an inch up from the bottom. And then you're going to fold it over a quarter of an inch. What we're going to do is make a doubled hem at the bottom so that there's no raw edges. And we're just going to put our needle in and come out to the other side. And we're just going to do a straight stitch all along the bottom. And to go a little bit faster, I kind of load my needle with stitches. And basically I take maybe 3 or 4 stitches along the bottom and get them all onto the needle, and then pull the needle through. So instead of doing just 1 stitch at a time, you're doing 3 or 4, and it goes just a little bit faster. So we're going to do that all the way across, in and out, up and down. I guess technically it's down and then up, all the way across. And pull the needle through. Big thing with that technique that you want to make sure that you're not doing is you're not gathering your stitches, so make sure that your piece is nice and flat when you're all done, because otherwise it'll create puckers and gathers, which for this particular piece we don't want. Okay, so now instead of tying off at this point, what you're actually going to do is fold that piece over again, and now this is going to create our actual hem for the pants. So we folded it over, one more time, and we're actually going to work back the way we came. So I'm going to turn the piece over just so that I'm working right to left. If you can work left to right, by all means go right ahead and do that, but I'm just going to flip it over, and then we're just going to do just like we just did the first time, and go back and forth, up and down. Now it's a little bit more difficult to load your stitches because we're going through 4 layers of fabric this time instead of 2. So just do maybe 2 stitches at a time, whatever you're comfortable with. And we're going to go ahead and do this for both pant legs. Just pull it, smooth it out. Make sure you don't have any like buckles in your thread. Alright, if you get a knot like this, it's really relatively easy to fix it. You just kind of slowly pull the thread back. And what happens is one side of the thread gets pulled longer than the other, so you just got to figure out which one's looped and pull it even. And then work it back down. So. Okay. Now, when you get to your last stitch, you always want to make sure that your final stitch is on the inside. So if you come to the end and don't have enough room, I just take a stitch going back the other direction to make sure that it winds up on the inside of the fabric as opposed to the outside, because you don't want a knot on the outside. So just take a quick knot here at the bottom to finish off your thread. And I like to double knot it just to be sure. And then snip off the excess. Reknot your thread, and we're going to do the exact same thing for the second pant leg. Start on the wrong side, put your thread through, fold it up, and then stitch across. Okay. So always make sure that your piece is nice and flat when you tie your knots. Okay. And both pants are now hemmed. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the two pieces together. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay them down, and with the right sides facing together, going to match them up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew one of these front seams, like your crotch seam, first, and we're only going to sew one of them. So we're just going to match it up, and we're going to do the same back and forth stitch here, about 1/4 inch from the edge of the material. And the Pukifee size is pretty small, so it really only takes about 6-8 stitches to get across. Okay, so pull it there, make sure it's nice and flat, and go ahead and tie your knot, and tie a second knot. And snip your thread. Okay. So now we have the front of the pants. What I'm going to do here is you can either finger press it to one side, you can always use an iron and actually press it, or press it to the other side. The other thing you can do is actually open it up and finger press it so both sides are open. And basically just give it a little bit of pressure, and you can set it down and use your nail and just rub it a little bit, and that opens it up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make the waistband casing for the elastic. And this is going to be a 2-part process, basically exactly like we did the hem for the pant legs, but the second time that we fold it over, we're actually going to fold it over down about 1/2 inch, so that there's room for our elastic to go through. If you're using 1/4 inch elastic, you need to make sure that you leave enough room for that. If you're just using 1/8 inch elastic, you can actually make your casing a little bit smaller, and that'll actually leave your pants sitting a little bit higher on your doll body. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and fold down just the top, I don't know, maybe 1/8 inch from the top. Like I said, just like we did on the hem at the bottom. And we're just going to sew this all the way across. And again, you don't want to gather it, even though the elastic's going to gather it. At that point, you want your initial sewing to be nice and flat. So just back and forth. Pull your thread, smooth it out. Now, when you get to the center here where your two pieces meet, you just want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth and folded down flat. And again, you want to make sure that your thread ends on the inside. Make sure you're nice and smooth. Tie your knots and cut off your thread. Okay, so now the next part is going to finish the casing for the elastic. So we need to be able to make sure that our elastic is going to fit through the casing. So figure out how low you need to go, and then start sewing. And now in hindsight, for the small Pukifee size, it might have been better to go with the 1/8 inch elastic. I didn't happen to have any on hand, but we'll see how this turns out. Now the big spot to make sure that you leave enough room is actually the crotch area where we folded it over, or where we sewed it together already, because you want to make sure that you can fit your elastic all the way across. Okay. And again, make sure your final stitch ends up on the inside. And tie your knot. And then, okay. Now I need to go ahead and rethread our needle. Okay, so next step is threading our elastic. And what I like to do is actually take 2 safety pins and we're going to put one vertically across the elastic like this, and that's going to keep it from pulling into the casing. The other we're going to put into the elastic horizontally, so it's going the same direction. Okay. And we're going to use this as our lead, kind of like a needle to thread the elastic in. So you just put it into the casing, and then you're going to kind of gather the material over the needle, or excuse me, over the pin, and just pull it. And you just work it your way through all the way to the end. And now here, your second pin is going to keep the elastic from getting lost inside. So just keep pulling until your elastic comes out the other side. You want to make sure that your elastic is straight. Now, holding on to the elastic and the thread, open up the pin, and then go ahead and turn it so that it's horizontally connecting the two. Just kind of stretch your elastic out. Now you want to make sure that your right sides are together, and we're going to carefully hold on to the thread and the elastic so everything's all together. Hopefully your needle is prepared, because otherwise don't take those pins out. Alright, now I'm going to start at the top. You want to make sure that you go through the fabric and the elastic. And I'm going to take about 3 or 4 stitches, pretty much right exactly in the same place, to kind of lock that elastic in there. Okay, once your elastic is locked in there, you can kind of relax a little bit. And then we're just going to go ahead and finish sewing all the way down the seam here. And actually we're only going to sew, sorry, my pattern got shifted a little bit. So I think I'm going to need to adjust the Pukifee pattern before I post it for you guys. But it is what it is. The technique is the same. Okay, so we're actually only going to sew down maybe 1/2 inch on the top here, because that's going to be the back side of the crotch area. And basically you're going to sew kind of on an angle from the top to the edge, because if we sewed all the way down, that's actually sewing our pant leg together, and we don't want to do that. Ouch. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put our thread. Okay, so now, if we open it up, we have kind of this little flappy open skirt. So what we're going to do is we need to match the pieces together, and then sew. This is the inseam, so this is going to create the 2 legs of the pattern. Okay, so just basic straight stitch from one side to the other. So match up your hems at the bottom. And then just start sewing all the way across. You're going to sew about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And again, just make sure your stitches are nice and flat. Now, if you run into a situation like I did where one side appears to be longer than the other, that's very possible. And you just kind of need to adjust your fabric. And actually, I can see what I did here is I actually didn't sew that crotch area down long enough. So I'm just going to kind of go in here and take a couple of stitches up. And then a couple stitches right back down the same path that I just took, and that'll close up that gap and put the fabric back where it needs to be. Okay, so then this is the little crotch area here. And I usually like to take a couple extra stitches in there just to make sure that it's nice and secure.